Hello, everyone. My guest today is Aditya Bhamidipaty. He's the CEO and co-founder of Firsthive, the company co-founded with his partner in 2009. He acquired his engineering bachelor's from JNTU and postgraduate diploma in management from another university, and then began his career with Procter & Gamble and soon moved into a leadership role where he was responsible for the southern region. He turned around a loss-making region into a profitable one in record time and also the highest growth area for P&G. He's also worked with iGate in London before moving back to India to set up eSmart Solutions and jump in to Firsthive. Aditya, you ready to take us to the top?
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to this conversation, Nathan.
All right, tell us about Firsthive. What does the company do, and are you a pure play SaaS company?
We are a pure play SaaS company. Firsthive is a product that we launched in 2016. It's about 30 months since we launched, and we're very, very excited about what we're doing. It's essentially a customer data platform. We go to large consumer marketing companies like banks, financial services companies, retail, CPG organizations, and what we're doing is we're helping them take control of their marketing. If you're familiar with the marketing landscape today, the number of tools out there that enterprises have to deal with have exploded, along with the interfaces that have exploded. And with all of this, what has happened is consumer data today in a typical consumer marketing company is just strewn all over the place in many different platforms. And we all see the result. I mean, most marketeers today struggle with a typical conversion rate of less than 2%, which probably makes this the only trillion-dollar industry with a 98% failure or a leaky bucket. Mm-hmm. And that's what we are helping these enterprises take control of and solve.
And so help us understand, if there's an enterprise listening right now, what's an average enterprise going to pay you per year to use this technology you've built?
It depends on the scale of marketing intensity that we handle for these enterprises. If you look at a typical large enterprise which has presence across multiple geographies, a few tens of millions of consumer interactions a day, and a lot of international content, and maybe anywhere from 30 to 200 different systems where they have consumer data sitting, and it is that dispersed. When Firsthive comes in, we connect into all of these channels, and then we are actually the world's first machine learning layer to build that unified entity. So there's a lot of compute that happens, which is directly linked to the marketing intensity. Mm-hmm. The pricing, therefore, varies anywhere from, I would say, about $150,000 all the way up to a couple of $1 million. Depends on the intensity of integrations and these events.
Okay. Now, again, there's a big range there, but just because we're short on time, I mean, would you say 150 per year is a fair average, or you think it's probably closer to 250 or 500? Or
I would say that a typical large enterprise, the average would be closer to the 250,000 at a couple of million events a day.
Okay, so 250 a year, and which comes out to call it maybe 20 grand a month, something like that. Yeah. Okay, very interesting. And then you said you launched in 2016, right? Tell us the story of how you got your first, one or two customers.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm an ex-Procter myself, and therefore have some familiarity with this space, working inside probably one of the original marketing companies of the world. And then when I moved out and I moved to iGate, I was selling to companies like that, selling analytics solutions and technology solutions to them. And then I came back and I started, a firm that I ran for 6 years, which was in the marketing services space. So I got a very, very interesting, perspective into marketing and the opportunities that we saw, both being inside an organization, selling tech to these organizations, and then servicing marketing campaigns. And a lot of it was really born out of the opportunity that I saw in the data that was getting generated but not necessarily getting leveraged. Most marketing campaigns end up being expensed out at the end of the campaign rather than looking at that as a data asset on customer behavior, customer experience.
So, just to be clear, what I'm looking for is your first couple of customers in Firsthive. It sounds like you had a marketing agency for 6 years prior to this. Were your first customers in Firsthive the software from the marketing agency?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I had relationships with customers there, and therefore I had access to a few CMOs. My first customers, therefore, were from relationships that I had built in the past. And and that's how we got rolling on this.
And then how many over the past, call it 3 years, how many customers are you now serving today?
We are now at 29 paying customers as an enterprise.
Okay.
These are large enterprises which are, across these two primary verticals that we mentioned that we focus on, which is banking, financial services, and then manufacturing, CPG, and retail.
Okay. And what's the team that you built around you? What do they look like? How many people?
We're a 40-member company today, largely engineering. As you can imagine, this is a heavy engineering product. We're 27 engineers led by our CTO and VP engineering, and then we have a product management team that's again around ad tech and martech. So that's really the core of the team, and then we have a client customer success team which helps our customers leverage the product.
And Aditya, have you decided to bootstrap the company, or did you decide to raise capital?
A lot of Firsthive has been built bootstrapped, and I'm actually very excited in the way we've done this, because while we did raise a small angel round early on as we started Firsthive, the core of the company was actually bootstrapped initially, but we ran a really tight ship here, and then we hit cash flow positive within 18 months of launch of the product. And then,
just to get the funding number. So total funding into the company to date is about how much?
Marginal, less than $500,000.
Okay, okay, that's great. No, that's wonderful. I love kind of bootstrap stories. So this is great. Say that again.
Largely bootstrapped.
Yeah. Well, listen, you're either bootstrapped or you've raised capital. There's not like largely bootstrapped. So you've raised very little money, is how I would say it. Less than 500,000.
Yes.
Yeah, very good. Okay, and then so less than $500,000 raised. You turned cash flow positive early on. How did you fund kind of the early creation of the technology? Did you raise early on, or did you use like professional services stuff to fund the growth?
No, the initial amount of it was bootstrapped, and then we funneled some of our because of the marketing services company, we had cash flows, and therefore we funneled that into the product in the initial days. And then we switched over to the product completely.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
That was when we raised the little bit of capital that we raised.
And then initial 29 customers today at that price point you told me earlier, you said an average of about $20,000 per month. I mean, that would put you at about $580,000 per month right now in revenue. Is that correct?
That is not correct, because not all our deployments are at that scale. The typical scale that we are at is closer to about a third of that number.
Okay, got it. So maybe closer. So maybe more like $7,000 per month or $24,000 per year. $84,000 per year kind of contracts. Yeah, that would put you at about $200,000 per month today in revenue. Is that more accurate?
That is closer to the accurate.
Okay. Still, by the way, still great considering a bootstrap company 3 years in. Still a great story. What's growth look like? So if you're at 200 a month today, where were you exactly a year ago? Do you know?
We grew we doubled in terms of number of customers over the last year. And our revenue also kind of reflected a very similar number.
Okay, but so revenue about doubled as well?
Revenue is doubled as well. Revenue is slightly less than double, because we are going in for a little more aggressive POCs at this stage. And therefore, the revenue is less than double, but then the number of customers have doubled. The exciting thing for us is what's happening in the future. We just launched our operations in the US. We started in Bangalore for the last 30 months, and then last month we set up our US office. And we're really excited. We're hoping to kind of hit like a 6 to 8x growth in the next 24, 28 months. So we're quite excited about where we are, what we are seeing right now in terms of the early days on the.
Did you say in the next 6 to 12 months you want a 6x?
No, 24 to 28 months. Yeah.
So over the next 2 years, you want to take $200,000 a month or 2.4 million a year and get up closer to 12 million or 13 million per year run rate.
10 to 12 million run rate is what we want to get to in the next 2 years.
And where do you see, what's your best guess today in terms of where that growth is going to come from? Upselling your current 30 customers or landing new customers altogether?
No, landing new customers is going to be the biggest growth accelerator.
Why do you say that? Why do you say that so definitively?
Because of two things, I think. The market is, this is a very early market in that sense for a customer data platform. And therefore, this is just very, very wide and open. And therefore, the new customer acquisition growth is what I expect to be very rapid. For example, we expect to quadruple the number of customers in the next 2 years. So that's going to be a very, very important part of the growth. Having said that, also expansion of the existing customers into new geographies is going to be an important second component of that growth. But the first one is definitely going to be the leading one between these two.
Yeah.
Because also,
I mean, you mentioned Eric early on in the interview when you looked at their S1, 40% of their new revenue came from expansion, not new customer adds. So, I mean, that can be a very, especially at your ACVs, expansion can be very critical. Do you know what that number is to date? Do you know what your historical year-over-year expansion has been on contracts?
It is about 40%.
40?
Yes.
Okay.
Our year-on-year is also about 40% today. And we've seen very, very little churn. We've seen less than 3% churn in the last 2 years.
That's per month or annually?
Annual.
Okay. So it's about 3% gross revenue churn per year, 40% expansion on revenue. That puts you at about 137% net revenue retention annually. Is that accurate?
About 137 to 140% is what our incremental revenue is as well from customers. And therefore, new customer acquisition while new customer acquisition is a really important thing, existing customer growth is going to be an equally important thing. But the new customer becomes a little more important because we're also getting into new geography, and therefore we're going to get access to a new market, and therefore that's going to be our number one objective, followed by of course revenue retention or revenue growth, expansion revenue from existing customers.
How aggressive are you being in terms of getting the customer in the first place? And specifically, if someone's going to pay you $84,000 for a year-long contract, will you spend that full amount to acquire them?
No, our LTV to CAC ratios today, I would say, are very healthy. We have an upwards of 8 on that number today.
Okay, just to be clear, so I wasn't. LTV is something that is kind of extrapolated over time and can be a weird number to look at. Your pure CAC to get a new $84,000 contract is what?
So if you look at a payback period, then our sales payback period is close to about 4.5 months.
Okay, 4.5 months. Okay, which means you're spending about $20,000 to get a new customer.
Correct.
Yeah, that's going to pay you $84,000 for a year. That's great. I mean, can you be more? So you said you had a team of 27 out of your total team of 40. Do you have a sales motion built yet? How many salespeople do you have on your team?
We have about 4 people in our sales today. So the sales has actually been something that we've done more inbound, and most of our acquisition has been inbound or referrals. Customer referrals, or through the different awards that the platform has won, and therefore we've got inbound interest from customers. The sales machine is something that we've just set up in the last 4 months, and that is what we are kind of hoping will kickstart a lot more acceleration and therefore the aggressive numbers on the next 2 years.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned your LTV to CAC. You said was about 8. So if you're spending $20,000 on CAC, that would put your LTV at, call it, $160,000. Where are you getting that number from?
The LTV to CAC ratios is the 160 number, because typically today what's happening is we are seeing about 1.5 to 2 year history on our customers, and we've not really played out on all the contracts. It's still early days, like you said, for us to be able to put an LTV to CAC.
Yeah.
But this is the existing history. And this is an evolving number as we go forward.
Yeah, I was going to say, if anything, you have the opposite problem, which is if you extrapolate your gross churn data, the average customer, you could argue, would stay with you for 400 months, which we know is a very stupid number to plan around because, right, that you're just dividing. But that would put your LTV at like 2.8 million, right, which is, again, ridiculous to plan around, but that's what the numbers say. So you're saying our historical data shows, call it 250-ish is more accurate. 250 grand is what our most expensive customer is paid. Yeah. Interesting. Okay, very cool. What about any plans to raise capital or no?
We do plan to raise capital later in this year, but that's going to be once we kind of get the initial velocity in the US market. And we're about 6 weeks into the US market.
Okay.
So I think in 6 months from now, we would have landed our first few customers in the US market, and that's when we are going to be looking at raising our Series A.
And what do you think the right amount of money to raise would be at that point?
I cannot put a number on that right now.
Well, a range is fine. I mean, are we talking like 5 million or 1 million or 10 million?
Yeah, I think it'll be maybe in the ballpark of the 10 million round that we'll be looking at as we get, because this is going to be to fund our next growth from a Series A standpoint. And therefore, I suspect that's what it's going to be like.
Yeah. And then, I mean, do you have a general sense, and again, this is very speculative at this point, but do you have a general sense of what valuation you'd like to raise on 6 months from now or 12 months from now?
I think that's a little premature right now for me to answer.
Okay.
Because the way I look at this is that the capital is really coming in to help us grow, and I think we'll get a much better sense of the velocity and the valuation that the product deserves as we look at the market in the next 3 to 4 months. How quickly are we able to land our first few customers? What kind of velocity we are able to build in the pipeline? The last 6 weeks has been incredibly encouraging. We've kind of already seen phenomenal response on our lead pipelines in the last 6 weeks. We're very excited about what we've seen with very, very limited inputs that have gone in from our side so far. But I think 4 months from now, we'll have a much better handle on what is a fair valuation for us to go in. But I'm sure you know this. I mean, valuation is just one of the many metrics that will kind of go into making our choice on who we go with.
I just wonder why a guy like you wants to raise it all. I mean, you've bootstrapped really effectively at this point, and you raise money, especially if you raise $10 million, right? Right now, you're doing $2.4 million in ARR, right? Let's say 6 months from now, you get that up to $3 million. If you're going to raise 10 million, you'd have to, I mean, your valuation, you'd have to look at raising, if you want to only give up 10% of the company, you have to raise it $100 million post money, right? Which is, you can do the math on 3 million ARR, what X that is, right? That's going to be hard to get that kind of deal. So you're going to take a lot of dilution if you raise 10 million bucks. And I just wonder why a guy like you wants to raise versus trying to stay bootstrapped.
See, I think part of it is driven also by the most of our acquisition, like I said, so far has been inbound and organic. We've not really spent on marketing. And I don't think we will be able to fund the kind of marketing that the product deserves for us to get to the number. And there is always a time to market. If you look at Firsthive, we were actually the world's first full stack customer data platform with a machine learning layer on identity building. And we still continue to be the only full stack customer data platform with the machine learning on the identity building. Although there are a couple of other products which have come up on the machine learning on identity building, but they are not full stack.
Yeah.
So there is also a time to market for a product. And given the reception that we've seen, we've been incredibly encouraged by how the time to market advantage we have because of the feature set that we are bringing into the market.
Yeah.
And a little bit of dilution, but then if we are able to grow the pie and then capture market, I think that's going to be a much larger objective for us than maybe an incremental dilution at this stage.
Yeah, you're talking to a lot of VCs because that's the story they sell you.
No, not yet. I've not yet begun talking to a lot of VCs.
I'm just giving you a hard time, man. I just think you've done a fantastic job bootstrapping, and I want to congratulate you on that. All right, let's wrap up with the famous five. Number one, what's your favorite business book?
I just read Horowitz's The Hard Thing About Hard Things last month, and I really loved a lot of those insights that he gave. I could relate to a lot of those small nuggets of pieces that he referred to. Loved it.
Number two, is there a CEO you're following or studying right now?
No, I don't have one CEO. I'm following a lot of different people and reading a lot of different blogs.
Pick one.
Difficult to do that.
Okay, but number three, what's your favorite online tool for building your company?
Online tool. My favorite tool is Firsthive. I love what we do at Firsthive.
Besides your own.
Right. Oh, Zoom. I absolutely love what Zoom has done. I think it's such a seamless experience. Love it. Having said that, I also love another tool in the same video space, which is Appear. We use that a lot. I absolutely love the ease at which we were able to do it. So I really love the way these tools have done it. I love Intercom. Intercom is an incredibly beautiful tool.
Number four, how many hours of sleep are you getting per night?
I'm sorry?
How many hours of sleep per night?
Oh, that varies. With all my travel, I don't think my body knows which time zone I'm in right now. So I would say, between 6 to 8.
Okay.
Right now.
And what's your situation? Married, single, kids?
Married with 2 kids.
And how old are you?
I'm 39.
All right. Last question. What do you wish your 20-year-old self knew?
I should have probably gotten married earlier.
Guys, there you have it. Firsthive, 29 customers paying on average $84,000 per year, doing about $200,000 per month right now in revenue. That's up from $100,000 per month just a year ago. They've only raised $500,000 to do this. They are cash flow positive. Team of 40, 3% gross churn annually, 40% expansion for 137% net revenue retention annually, spending 20 grand to get a new $84,000 per year customer. So a healthy payback period there of 3 months as they look to scale. Again, cross-channel B2B customer engagement and marketing automation product. Aditya, thank you so much for taking us to the top.
Thank you, Nathan. Wonderful talking.